nobody will disagree with. The average person spends about a third of their life asleep, right? According to the National Institute of Health, we spend a little bit above 2 hours a night dreaming. So if somebody is 90 years old, that means they've spent 30 years asleep and about 7.5 years dreaming. So why do we spend such a huge chunk of our life dreaming, right? That's interesting. We don't actually really know, but there are some theories. So today I'd like to inform you guys about some of the main accepted theories of dreaming. We'll specifically talk about the activation synthesis theory of dreaming, the reverse learning theory, and the threat simulation theory. So we'll talk about those three theories. Of course, this is relevant to you because we spend, like I said, 2 hours a night dreaming, so that's about 8% of our life we're going to spend dreaming, right? 2 hours out of 24 in a day, it's about 8% of our life. And before I get into actually the topics, I just like to talk about some of the sources I use. So I have two main sources I'm going to be using. One of them is the National Institute of Health, and they are the primary agency in the U.S. that's responsible for both health-related research and biomedical research. And they're also federally funded, so they're very credible by us. And I also use an article by a well-informed psychologist who's also well-educated, who wrote an article for Psychology.com. Her name is Kendra Cherry, and she's also very credible. So with that out of the way, I'm able to talk credibly about this topic. So we'll begin by talking about the activation synthesis theory. So this theory says, according to Kendra Cherry, in an article she wrote on Psychology.com, she says this theory says this: dreams are caused by physiological processes in the brain. That's it. Dreams are caused by physiological processes in the brain. That's what she says. Not psychological, right? So if you know anything about what Freud says about dreams, it's entirely psychological. This theory that was founded in 1977 by two Harvard students says something entirely different than what we've always studied dreams to mean. So it's only physiological. So the way that it works is that they study what happens in your brainstem when you sleep. So when you sleep and you're in REM sleep, so you're having vivid dreams, your brainstem will be stimulated, and that will cause parts of your limbic system to be stimulated in your brain. So it's like a chain reaction. So you have all these activations that are going on inside of your brain, and your brain's like, what the heck do these mean? And so it synthesizes or combines that information together, and it puts it in a dream. So that's the activation synthesis theory. Now we'll talk about the reverse learning theory. So this theory, according to the National Institute of Health, says there is, and I quote, a reverse learning mechanism during REM sleep that helps remove undesirable interactions in the neural networks. So what the heck does that mean? Basically, it's saying that when we dream, there are certain things we don't actually want to have in our brain. So for example, if you look at the tile right here, this one's got more red marks on it than this one over here. You might look at it and realize that, but you'll forget it when you dream because it's not important, right? That's the reverse learning theory. There's certain things that we don't actually want to remember because it's not worth our time, and we forget them during dreams. Okay, so now we'll talk about the threat simulation theory. And this theory basically says that we dream to prepare ourselves for some life-threatening situation. So for example, when we were hunter-gatherers, one thing, maybe I have a nightmare about like a bear attacking me, and then 3 days later, I have to actually kill a bear to feed my family, right? The idea behind this theory is that we sort of dream about these life-threatening situations to prepare ourselves for when we have to actually deal with them. So that's the threat simulation theory. So what have we talked about? Today I've informed you guys about three main accepted theories of dreaming. We talked about the activation synthesis theory and how that works. Basically, brainstem's activated, causes a chain reaction, and your brain has to synthesize or combine that information, and it makes a dream out of that. It sort of makes sense of all these signals that are going on in your brain. We also talked about the reverse learning theory and how basically you want to forget things that aren't important, and that's why you have dreams. And then finally, we talked about the threat simulation theory, which says that dreams prepare us for life-threatening situations. So those are the three main theories on why we spend 8% of our life dreaming. So in conclusion, I would just like to say the next time you have some really, really strange dream where, I don't know, something really weird happens and you're wondering what the heck that dream really means, you could either say it means nothing at all or it means a lot, right? Depending on what theory you want to go with. we don't actually know, but you can decide that, right? So thank you for your time.